making sure that everything's working. There we go. And we've got on the line right now Bob Pollock of Penn State's Cooperative Extension. Morning, Bob.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good today.
Excellent.
You?
Now, I'm doing okay so far. We want to let people know that they can call in and actually talk with you. So if you have a question for Bob, you can give us a call this morning at 724-479-1160. Now, he's on the other line, so 724-479-1160 is the number to call, and we'll patch you through to Bob right away. So be prepared to talk whenever you are put through on the line. So, Bob, we've still not had a lot of rain. And I'm still seeing yards turning brown as we speak, but this has got to be affecting a lot of the plants and the crops out there, I would imagine.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, this extended period of dry and hot weather has definitely stressed a lot of things. Everything from flowers to shrubs to trees to fruit and vegetable plants.
So, we've not seen this in a while. Normally, when we think of Indiana County, we actually kind of rag on ourselves a little bit as a state that's an area that gets even more rain than Seattle. So, what are some of the best things? Obviously, watering the lawns and watering the plants, making sure they get the proper hydration. But if it gets too far down, we may be getting into a place where water restrictions may go in place.
And typically, because we do get fairly ample rainfall throughout the year, we don't have a lot of irrigation systems set up to water lawns like they do in other parts of the country. We just don't normally have to do that. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, we can just let the grass go dormant, which is what it's pretty much doing right now, even though it's browning out, some spots more than others. And that can be variations in the soil that can be caused from compaction in spots that are browning out and look worse than other parts of the yard. There can be rocky outcroppings, or there might be a big boulder down in the ground. Maybe it's just only a foot deep, but because that makes the topsoil shallower, then that allows that soil to dry out quicker, and then we see the effects of that on our yards and other plants as well.
Mm-hmm. We're getting into the late summer season. What are some things that farmers are keeping in mind right now as we're getting into this part of the time?
Well, depending on what you're growing, of course, you're looking at the maturity. When will the crop mature? Is it going to have enough water to do that? So there's a lot of things going through people's minds as we march on here, and we go another day without a significant rainfall. And there's still time for most crops to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the, even though we've been drier, we've actually seen more insect issues, especially, both on ornamental shrubs and trees as well as fruit and vegetables. So we switch from wet weather, where we have more disease problems, to drier weather, where we tend to have more insect problems. And everything from aphids, so people might be seeing aphids, different types of spider mites,
mm-hmm.
and those can be on vegetables, especially some of the vine crops, eggplant, things like that. Eggplants are like a magnet for spider mites. You'll see them on there before you'll see them on a number of different plants. So it's just, you've got to go out and look at things. Many of the, like aphids and
mm-hmm.
mites and thrips, are all sucking insects, so they stick their mouth parts in the leaves, and then they extract the fluids in the leaves.
Well, they're just trying to get a drink too. It sounds like
they're trying to get their nutrition, and that's where they get it from, is various different plants, and to our detriment sometimes, because if we get enough mite damage on plants, then that will affect the quality of the crop that you'll get.
Mm-hmm.
It might reduce the size of the crop, and as well as the quality that you're able to harvest. And it just causes a general decline in the plant.
Mm-hmm. Remember, you can call in with your questions for Bob Pollock. You can want to call in now. 724-479-1160 is the number to call. Bob, when I was visiting my mom and dad the other day, and they have nice backyard gardens, I will say that. They are very good. I have not inherited any of those talents, unfortunately. But I did notice one of the old tools from my memories of running around in that backyard, and that is the beetle traps had to come out. So I guess we're seeing a run of beetles coming through and trying to get at plants in some form.
Yes, that's another insect. They tend to be spotty. You know, somebody will have a lot of them, and you go a quarter mile down the road, and you haven't seen any.
Yeah.
But Japanese beetles in particular, and that's typically what's attracted to those beetle traps. So those they're very localized, and of course they're a non-native pest. They were brought here, and so there's a lot of different plants that serve as hosts for those. So they'll feed on the leaves of many plants, trees and shrubs, and then then the grub stage is damaging. Mm-hmm. So some insects we just have problems with one life stage. It might just be the caterpillar stage of that insect. Well, Japanese beetles, both the adults can do a lot of damage. So if you have a grape arbor, you may have noticed that this summer that you might have had a problem with Japanese beetles skeletonizing the leaves. And then the grub stage typically feeds on plant roots, especially lawn grass roots. So it's can be very damaging to that as well. So if you seem to have a larger population of adults around this summer, then it would be good to be taking a look at your lawn as well. And then it can get a little challenging to tell what's going on there when things are so dry. The grass is kind of dormant now, but that will not stop those beetle larvae from feeding on the roots of the grass. And so later this summer and into fall, those plants may not come back. The grass you may end up with dead spots, and you might think, well, it's because it was so dry. Well, it could be, but it could also be that we've got something else going on.
I just find it interesting, the one fact that you said that you could see a whole bunch of Japanese beetles in one area, then you go just a quarter mile down the road and there are none. It's almost like it's almost very hit or miss, almost like a tornado going through. They would touch and destroy one building, but the building next door completely unharmed. I mean,
yes, that's true.
I mean, it's just amazing about that. So what are some other things that maybe the home gardener should be looking out for as we're moving into the later summer months?
So we're trying to limit the amount of stress on plants as much as we can, and that's much easier. We can water a shrub. It's much more difficult to water a tree, since there's over 27,000 gallons of water needed to equate to an inch of rain on 1 acre of ground. It takes about it's about 0.6 of a gallon per square foot that you need to apply to the soil to equal that 1 inch rain that we might get. So that adds up to be a lot of gallons of water, and for most people that's just not doable unless you have a pond or a very good spring or source of water that you can use to do that. But especially the flowers, you might have to water flower pots twice a day right now to keep them going.
Right. And on the hot days, I think you want to avoid the middle of the day because that'll evaporate up and just disappear. Your efforts will be wasted.
Well, I mean, within a container, you can still do it then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're fine that way.
See, I'm a city boy, and like I said, I have not inherited my mom and dad's gardening techniques. So I'm very clueless when it comes to gardening. I think I tried it once. I tried growing tomatoes in one of those topsy-turvy containers.
Yeah.
And it worked for a little bit, I will say that, but I don't think I had enough sunlight in the area. But that's neither here nor there.
It's probably easier to start growing them in the ground than it is to grow them in containers. To start out with, to learn how to do it.
Okay. Well, next
the level of management is higher when you grow things in containers than it is when we just plant it out in the ground.
That's actually that actually kind of runs counter, because you're thinking you're not dealing with as much, because you're not dealing with as much soil or as much, I guess, roots or whatever, and the people make it seem like it's an easy thing to do, but really doing it in the ground in a traditional garden setting would be better.
Right, because within that container we are limiting the root system. That plant might have a larger root system if it's out in the regular soil, and then we're also, because it is a smaller quantity of soil, then you have to pay more attention to, it's going to need watered more often, and then in addition to that, you have to supply all the majority of the nutrients that are needed, and do that on a regular basis, versus the soil, which kind of has a bank of nutrients, how we refer to it.
Yeah.
So they're there, and for the most part they're there, and then the plant can access them as it needs them. And it's just the opposite when we start to containerize plants, or when we get into hydroponics or bag culture. Then all those things we really have to pay a lot of attention to: nutrition, water, heat, light.
Yeah, just everything. Well, there's hope for me yet then.
That's right.
All right.
Don't give up yet.
All right. Bob, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry we didn't have any calls for you this week, but maybe next week we'll have some people calling in with their concerns. All right. Thanks again for joining us.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Pollock of Penn State's Cooperative Extension, joining us this morning on Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. First Commonwealth Bank.